narrative that this dialogue is pro-gun versus anti-gun. That's not what this debate is. This debate is gun safety versus fill in the blank, right? Gun safety does not mean anti-gun. One of the things that we do is hand out gun locks. We partner with local groups and we hand out gun locks at organizations. This has been so successful that we're now partners with the Fayetteville Police Department, and they provide gun locks to us to distribute. So this has been a really great thing to do, and anybody who wants to get involved, the more the merrier. We're happy to have you. The second thing, Arkansans Against Guns on Campus started a GoFundMe as soon as the law passed that Representative Letting was describing. And this sticker that Steve is going to show, it just says, you know, carrying a handgun is not permitted in this establishment. One thing you can do is support your friends who are business owners who want to keep guns out. We want to be able to support those business owners, take the burden off of the business owners to keep guns out of their establishment. It's an unfair burden to place on them. So what this GoFundMe did was print up signs that meet the statutory requirements for labeling, and we remove that burden from business owners by handing those signs out to folks that want them. So you can help us with distribution if that's something you'd like. The third and fourth things that I want to talk about have to do with your elected officials, right? This is critical. You can support your gun sense elected officials. We're part of this huge grassroots movement that's coming up from the bottom, but we need the support from the top to confront the lie as well, right? To take on this gun lobby lie from the top or the side, wherever he happens to be sitting. But we've just got to talk about it, right? If we have any hope of moving the needle forward. And so when your representatives, when your elected officials talk about gun sense in a way that makes sense to you, in a way that you appreciate, thank them, support them, keep that conversation going, keep them incentivized to keep doing it, right? We have to get the message out that what we want, gun sense advocates want, is what the majority of Americans want, right? Think about universal background checks for one example. And the things that we and the majority of gun owners want, that's not what the NRA is consistently lobbying for. We need elected officials that drive home that message consistently and clearly. We also need to contact our lawmakers who aren't doing this. Historically, gun owners are almost twice as likely to contact their elected representatives as non-gun owners are. Moreover, they're almost 3 times as likely to contribute money to organizations that take positions on gun policy. But this is starting to change, and here's where the really good news comes in. So my last point is that the critical thing is to support gun sense candidates as well as elected officials. We know, as I've said, we know where most Americans stand on gun sense. But up until now, we haven't really been able to see that at the polls. And why is that? A lot of folks think that the NRA's money, the gun lobby's money in general, power lies in their money. And that's true, they have a lot of money. Where their power really lies has been in their ability to turn their members into single issue voters, right? So I'll come back to that in a minute. But I'm not sure if anybody caught the news Tuesday night. Did you guys see any election results? It was a big night. They were really interesting election results for a lot of different reasons. They were exciting. What's particularly relevant for this panel is that the results on Tuesday night showed in no uncertain terms that the picture on gun sense is changing. So as I mentioned, the NRA is hugely good. It's very powerful. Their power lies in turning their members into single issue voters. What that means is that they will vote for a candidate based on his or her positions with respect to guns over any other issue. Conversely, what we typically see is that folks that have a pro-gun sense stance consider that stance part of a package of ideals and values that they hold, but they don't put it at the very, very top of their most important issues. In other words, the NRA created a dynamic such that voters for whom guns was their #1 issue were almost all voting for NRA-backed candidates. That changed on Tuesday. Look at Virginia's gubernatorial race as one example. We had an NRA-backed Republican, Ed Gillespie, versus a gun sense candidate, Ralph Northam. According to exit polls, the 2 most important issues to voters in that election were healthcare and guns. So think about that for a second, healthcare and guns. Typically, this would be very bad news for the gun sense candidate, right? If guns are near the top of the list, usually bad news for the guy who's gun sense, or gal. However, and this is where it gets really exciting, of the voters for whom guns was the #1 issue, 49% voted for the NRA-backed candidate, Gillespie, and 49% voted for Ralph Northam, right? So listen to that. Of the voters for whom guns were the #1 issue, their votes were split evenly between the two candidates. That means that in Virginia, that's the NRA's literal home turf, voters were coming out and voting in favor of gun sense as much as they were voting against it, right? Put differently, Ralph Northam, among others in the country on Tuesday, won his race, not despite of his gun sense positions, but because of them. And that's really good news for us. So that's the work that's being done. It's just begun. I will be quiet now and turn it over. But I just want to say that the work is exciting and we're gaining momentum and we're here to show that we're organized, we're knowledgeable, we're growing, and we're making a difference. If any of you are willing or excited about joining us in that, please find a lady in a red shirt in the back of the room, or you can find us on the internet, momsdemandaction.org. And I hope to see some of you all at meetings shortly. Thanks.
Thank you. Before Steve starts, make sure if you do have questions, go ahead and start filling them out, and volunteers will come around and pick them up too. So, thank you. Go ahead.
All right, I want to thank am I on? Now I am, right? Okay. I want to thank the League of Women's Voters and the panelists and all of you for attending tonight. That really is heartwarming in the sense that many of you care about the safety of our citizens. And I'm here to kind of address the safety of the citizens on the University of Arkansas campus, our faculty, staff, and students, our guests to the campus, and so forth and so on. Now, most of you know I'm a police official, so I can go back in my history. I've been in this business for over 30 years. I am very familiar with guns. I've practiced with guns. I've shot guns. I've trained on a SWAT team with a multitude of weapons, and so forth and so on. So I'm extremely comfortable. But hear what I'm saying to you. I have many years of experience. I have many years of practice. I have many years of going through training where when I have to make a decision, I feel somewhat confident I can make those decisions. Why? Because I've been in the trenches. I've been in scenarios where I've had to make very quick decisions. So I just want to share that in a sense, because I can't be, in a sense, totally against guns, or else I, as a police officer, wouldn't carry one. So I want to say this in a sense, and I'll try to make some of my points very clear, that I understand in our society that we have a right to carry a weapon. And I understand that when we talk about the society in general, when you talk about concealed carry, there are many people that believe they have a right to purchase a gun and try to help protect themselves and their family. Okay, I can go along with that. But when we get to a point where we start making decisions that when we bring in the institutions of higher education, all right, I'm a little uncomfortable, and it concerns me greatly. And the law has passed, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time speaking about that. But there's a point. In general society, we pass laws where we can carry a concealed weapon. In some states, you can carry open. But when you talk about an institution of higher education, when you open it up to where 21 years of age and above, faculty, staff, and students can carry weapons in the classrooms, you can understand how I might feel as a police official when we have to respond to a high-risk situation. Before, when we would enter a room, we can look and see, and the person probably with a gun is probably going to be what? The suspect. Now my great concern is if our officers respond and they enter a room and 5, 7, 10 guns are pulled, you can see the great concern I have and what that would cause for us. Some people would make the argument that, well, these shootings are over within 7 seconds, 14 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, or what have you. So my answer to that is, well, let's look at the University of Arkansas, for instance. When you talk about our response times, and when we did our study, we have a pretty good response time. On average, about 1 minute and 57 seconds. When you take our shooting in 2000, we probably, if I remember right, we responded within about 45 seconds. And if we have an officer in the right position on patrol, we may be able to respond in 10 seconds, 15 seconds. So you pass this legislation, but maybe we should look at, well, can we increase the police force a little bit? In a sense where we have more police officers strategically around the campus, especially in our zones, if we want to say, well, we need faster response times. Even though I think our response time is very, very, very good. And so I'm in a dilemma right now, in the sense of how are we going to train police officers to work in this new environment? And I have great concerns. And sometimes I don't sleep about it because I've already done some studies, and I'm already thinking about proposing to spend maybe even over $100,000 to bring in extra type of training equipment so the officers can be better prepared to make the right decision. I've been in those situations where you have to make those quick decisions. And this law is going to cause those situations. If we have a crisis in a classroom, for instance, with 20, 30, 40 students, and we respond, this is going to be a new norm for police officers as far as their training to be able to go into that type of environment and be able to survive, as well as protect the faculty, staff, and students in the room. So another interesting thing I want to mention, and I'm not going to get political here, but the university campuses throughout the state of Arkansas, when you talk about the law enforcement officials, none of us was for this. When you talk about our presidents, our chancellors, and most of our top administrators, none of them were for this, to my understanding, but yet this still passed. That was a great concern to me. Then I started to get a little political, and then I was kind of politely told to keep my mouth shut because, you know, in certain settings I need to be careful what I say. But I was very bothered by the fact that we were okay with the law where it gave the rights to the individual university campuses to make a decision on whether or not they will allow guns on campus. I'll stop there before I get in trouble. So when the law was passed, I had really, for me, an uh-oh moment. As a police official, I'm extraordinarily concerned, but yet I'm trying to be optimistic. I'm trying to be proactive in the sense of how we might train in the future. I'm trying to be proactive in the sense of how I'm going to involve the faculty, staff, and students in our training and what we might do to make sure we have the best chances of being safe. This is not only me speaking from a police official's position. And excuse me if I get a little emotional about this, because I do carry some baggage with me. I was a victim or a suspect when I was a young child, well, actually a juvenile. My cousin and I and two of our friends went to a home. We were playing. The friend said, "I have a shotgun." And of course, being young kids, we said, "Let's see the shotgun." He went and grabbed the shotgun, pulled it out. We were all joking around and everything. And then someone said, "Well, the gun's not loaded." And the gun, in fact, was not loaded. But the one holding the shotgun was trying to convince us it was loaded. My cousin and his friend ran across the street. I'm standing next to the individual holding the shotgun. They were joking, "It's not loaded, put the gun up, we're tired now, let's move on." And the young man with the shotgun turned to me, standing next to him, and said, "Steve, go look in my closet on the top shelf. I have some shotgun shells up there. Go grab them and bring them to me." Now, I was an inner city boy in Oklahoma City. I had no gun training, had not been exposed at all to the situation that I was about to find myself in. I went to the closet, grabbed the shotgun shells, brought the shotgun shells back to him, and he loaded the shotgun. My cousin and his friend came back across the street. My cousin, who was like a brother to me, Now, we weren't good kids, don't get me wrong. He was kind of a violent kid, and I was a thief at that time. But he came back. We were kind of done with the shotgun, and I'm standing next to the person holding it. My cousin was right in front of the barrel of the shotgun, and we heard the blast. Smoke filled the air. We were on the porch, and I looked down, and my cousin was shot in the neck and head with a shotgun. And I remember running away from the scene, and the friend turning to me, "You killed Todd. You killed Todd." So you can imagine, as a young man, I had a very hard time, and I still carry that burden today. Sometimes I say, I even murdered my cousin. If the shotgun had not been in the home, I'm convinced none of this would ever happen. If I had had gun training, I'm convinced this probably would have never happened. So there is a danger when we talk about the proliferation of guns and people just being able to get guns and store these guns in the homes. We already look at suicide situations and so forth, and it's not going to be something that I think we can solve anytime soon. Like one of the panelists said, we're going to have to work. You're going to have to be proactive. Maybe we can't stop a lot of this, but we certainly can get the message across about gun safety and those things that we need to know so that we can keep everyone safe. I remember, and I'm going to close with this. My mother was a stern person who believed in stern discipline, and I was a knucklehead. And my mother convinced me that she would, and I'm going to be candid because my mother was very blunt, if you ever raise your hand to me, I will what? Not beat you, basically. That would be my life. And I remember when I would upset her greatly, and sometimes intentional, I know that I believed her bluff because I knew she would pick up an iron skillet or anything she could get her hand on, but I remember her expressions when she would get so upset. And I'm saying this in the sense of how the emotions can take over. How many of you today will pick up a broomstick and swing it towards the head of your child? When my mother became so upset, she would look around for the first thing she can grab. And she picked up a broomstick and swung it towards my head. I blocked the stick broke in half. And I ran out of the house, and I had to beg to get back in the house. I said, "Mom, okay, I understand. I will obey you from here on out." And I never really gave my mom any more trouble because I knew my mom was serious. But when the emotions got high, and when you think about a situation where when we get upset, when something causes a spark in us, where we go into, sometimes we call a heat of passion, what will be the first thing that people might grab to defend themselves? Or to use in a way that's inappropriate, or where we are going to be sorry later. So thank you for being here. I think it's very important that we continue these discussions, and I look forward to the questions that might come in. Thank you.
Thank you for your opening remarks. That was a wide variety of perspectives, and we appreciate. Very, very sobering is kind of the overarching thing. I have a couple questions. Thank you all for getting them. I hope we can get to them, but the first one I have is, what protections has the university put in place to protect professors who may have an armed, disgruntled student in the classroom or his or her office?
I will say what I think, and of course, we have a professor here on the panel. As far as I think right now we're in discussion stage. There's been a lot of discussions. What can we do? What will the law allow us to do? And we, of course, are having ongoing discussions in the law enforcement agency, the University of Arkansas Police Department. And we are having meetings with some of our faculty to try to come up with reasonable solutions. Of course, trying to abide by the law as it is written, But I think there's still some discussions that have to take place because of how the law may be interpreted. I think there have been discussions about, well, can professors adjust where they meet with students and things of this nature? I'm just not sure where we are as far as that's concerned. But I think that those discussions are very important. They're taking place, and hopefully we'll definitely by next spring have a better feel of how the professors may go about taking any additional actions they need to take for their safety, as well as the safety of any students or any of our staff members.
Thank you. Anybody else wanting to comment on that? Okay, Nicole, are there talking points listed to convince small businesses to post the no gun signs in their windows?
Oh,
Or
we're
Steve, I guess. Or either one, yeah.
Okay, well, our answers might be different. My answer would be that we don't see, as far as distributing these goes, we don't necessarily see it as a job to convince small business owners of anything. We just want to use the burden that the law has placed on them in a way that we feel like is a little bit too heavy. So if businesses decide that this is a decision they want to make for themselves, then we make it easier for them to make that decision. I think that's, we like to clarify. So we have a talking points sheet that is bullet points about the law, but it's not meant to convince anybody of anything. It's just a clarification. The law is a little bit hard, but it's very hard for experts to understand, let alone lay business owners. So we have a talking point sheet that clarifies what the law actually says.
And
Yeah.
Steve,
Yeah, I'll concur with Nicole about that. These stickers are strictly voluntary. We're making them available to any businesses or even churches that want to post them on their property at no cost. They just give them away to them. If they want to post them, that's fine. There's not any pressure on them to do that. We're not pressuring people anyway. We're not trying to convince them to do it. Some business owners in town have them up already. Some have refused them already, and that's fine. That's their choice and their decision to make. And each individual business owner has to make that decision for themselves. But they're available for people if they want them. And that's all we're doing, is trying to provide a public service for those businesses and churches too that want to post these signs. We have them available.
and Steve, are there any particular details in terms of where you have to place them visually?
No, they can put it, I mean, it's got to be somewhere where someone's going to see it, obviously, and preferably near the entrance when you come in. It has to be visible from at least 10 feet away, or readable from 10 feet away. So most businesses have posted them on their door, front door, or a window facing the street or something like that, so people are aware when they come in and they see it.
Can I just interject really quickly? So the police department has told us to encourage folks, if they want to place them when you have your hand on your doorknob, so that they are directly at eye level. The easier they are for folks to read, the quicker police will know that they're posted, for one. So.
Patsy Fairweather just gave me some handouts. It's called the New Enhanced Concealed Handgun Legislation Impacts Private Businesses, and so I'll encourage y'all to pick that up on the way out. So thank you for that. How about, Greg, here's a question. Are guns allowed in Arkansas House and Senate chambers?
They are allowed in the Capitol, but it's my understanding they're not going to be allowed in the galleries where the public. Just this last session was the first session where we actually had metal detectors going into the chambers. I had actually, before the session started, thought about filing a bill to allow guns in the Capitol, just because I didn't feel it was fair that we get to live by a different standard. That bill would have cost me my marriage probably, but it turns out the Republicans ended up doing the work for me, and yes, you can take guns into the Capitol now.
I'm sorry, what about courthouse? Oh, courthouses?
Courthouses are not allowed.
Actually, isn't it courthouses but not courtrooms, maybe?
Actually, yes, I believe that's correct.
I'll add something too. So I think that's one thing that everyone needs to become very aware of if you're not aware already. This is not just a guns on campus bill. This is a guns virtually every public place bill. So you can carry guns at city parks, your children's soccer games, your children's Little League baseball game, city swimming pool at Wilson Park, into this chamber here in the library, into the city council meeting that we have every other week or so here. This is guns in every public place in the state, not just guns on campus.
want to add one more quick thing. We're talking about campus. Just to make sure I had all of my facts straight and that I remembered everything correctly, I talked with some of the attorneys who helped draft the legislation and asked about housing on campus. Housing is fair game, except you can't store your gun in campus housing. So I guess you're allowed to take your gun to your dorm room, but then at the end of the day, you got to take it someplace else. I don't know. The attorney's comment was that the law is ambiguous in that regard. When it comes to Greek housing, it's also very ambiguous. If the Greek housing is privately owned, they should be able to restrict it if they choose, but Greek houses are also on campus where people are allowed to carry their guns. Again, the attorney said he couldn't give me a definitive answer one way or the other.
I'm getting back to the university though. Can university professors post those on their individual classrooms?
No. Let me address Greg's comment too about storage in dormitories. So the Arkansas State Police have been charged with providing some guidance on what it means to carry in the dorms, and they've released this and is available for public comment right now. Their recommendations are out on their website, and they're taking public comments until tomorrow. But they've defined storage in a dormitory as not being in possession of your gun. If your gun is in the room with you somewhere, that's not being stored, according to the Arkansas State Police. If you leave the room and your gun is still in the room and you're not in the room with the gun, that is being stored. But if you're in the room with the gun, so the gun could be in your closet, it could be under your pillow, it could be in your dresser drawer somewhere, it could be in your backpack, it can be anywhere in that room. If you're in the room and the gun's in there, it's not being stored. So if you're in there sleeping in your room with the gun in the room somewhere, it's not being stored, according to the Arkansas State Police. So this isn't guns not allowed in dorms or not allowed to be stored in dorms. It's guns are allowed in dorms, and I want to know where you're going to go with that gun when you got to go to the shower in the morning, when you got to go to the bathroom at night. Do you take the gun with you to the bathroom? According to the law, you do have to take it with you. Where do you take it when you're in the shower? I don't know. There's some places you could shove it, I guess, but I don't know.